know that the HanDrinksSolo content team has produced over 300 videos documenting the rapidly changing South African wine scene. We go gallivanting, literally and metaphorically, across the full breadth of the South African winelands, hunting down unusual cultivars, wild winemaking techniques, emerging regions, and some of the rich and varied untold chapters of South African wine history. But we need your help. We want to know which specific wines or winemakers or emerging regions you have been pondering or which you want to learn more about. We want to use your input in order to guide us in producing content that is both useful and entertaining to wine lovers across the wine world. So here's your chance to have an impact. Drop a comment into the comment section on HanDrinksSolo.com or on any one of the videos on the HanDrinksSolo YouTube channel. We will then channel our inner Nancy Drew, pack up our Pelican briefcase, and head off to unearth the South African wine stories that you want to hear. But today we're here to discuss the HanDrinksSolo wine of the day, which is the Thokozani Cabernet Franc 2022, made by winemaker Lauren Holzman. I'm convinced that the Thokozani Cabernet Franc is one of the most underrated Cabernet Francs in all of South Africa. And now immediately some of you are going to object.
Objection, Your Honor. I object.
Because this particular wine has also won a buttload of really quite prestigious awards. Its 2019 vintage and its 2021 vintage both won the trophy for Best Cabernet Franc in South Africa at what is now the Investec Trophy Wine Show. Now, anyone familiar with the judging panel of that competition will know that even winning this award once is incredible, and winning it twice is nigh on history making. The 2019 vintage also won the Best in Class award for Cabernet Franc at the National Wine Challenge, and the 2021 vintage won a gold medal in that same competition. So your objection might be, well, if it's won all of these awards, how can you possibly say that it's underrated? Because very clearly, very many critics rate it. First off, I'd say fair dues, but I do have a counter to that. And that would be to say that this seems to be one of those wines that really struggles to have any stickability in the mind of South African wine lovers. Because what happens is it wins an award and everyone says, we should try that, and then forget it. And then next vintage it wins another prestigious award and people say, we should try that, and then they forget about it. What has yet to happen is that the Thokozani Cabernet Franc as a brand, outside of the competitions that it enters and medals its wins, somehow fails to stay up on the radar of great South African Cabernet Francs that are worth buying whether they have medals stuck to them or not. And this is something that I think needs to change.
Why does everybody keep doing that?
My theory for this lack of stickability is because of the style that the wine is made in. It is so immediately accessible that I think many people kind of write it off as a little bit of pop rock, because the tannins are supremely soft, and to be honest, I'm not sure it really will make it to 10 years. I can see the objection because really part of what makes a great bottle of wine is longevity. And this would be fine, it would be a valid critique were it not for the vast number of South African Syrahs currently getting masses of critical acclaim internationally who are equally light and gentle in style. It would seem to me that South African Syrah, at least for now, seems to get away with its own dubious longevity, where something like Cabernet Franc or Cabernet Sauvignon doesn't, rightly or wrongly. And really, the longevity of Cabernet or Cabernet Franc and the longevity of Syrah and how quality interacts with those concepts is a philosophical discussion for another day. So rather than focus on reasons for naysaying, I want to explain to you why I am a yaysayer on this particular wine. Now, I've said before, the reason I love Cabernet Franc is because when it is served at its best, it is a grape that can give you these big categories of highly contrasting aromas and flavors that weave together to form this incredible lattice of complex awesomeness. On one hand, you might have ripe berries and florals, and then on the other hand, you'll have spice and herbal elements and sweet and savory, pungent vegetable like bell peppers, but not green peppers, but nay, verily roasted red peppers. It really is a supremely engaging cultivar. Of course, many of these Cabernet Francs will also then be oaked, and so you might have notes of cedarwood and definitely some sweet baking spice. And the best ones have an additional mineral element that might express itself as chalk or even a kind of graphite. When we give this guy a sniff, it really does seem to deliver on every single one of those categories. We have these really well articulated, ripe, rich red bell pepper notes, fresh violets from the floral category, fresh blueberry, blackcurrant preserve, even a lovely little touch of herbal fennel on the back. And when we move on to giving it a sip, Well, the mouthfeel really is exceedingly winsome. But as I've hinted at, I think that's where the critique comes in. Because the tannins are very soft, the mouthfeel is medium to medium light, and perhaps there is a slight bit of concentration that's missing. But here's my counter to all that. Given the aromas that I've just mentioned and how they weave together, not only on the Vanguard, but then on the palate as well, you have a wine that still has a high level of complexity and is supremely accessible. Thokozani is a wine brand that is 100% owned by the 65 employees who work for the Dimersfontein Wine and Country Estate. The estate of Dimersfontein is located in the Wellington Wine District, and to be clear, it is the Sonnenberg family who own the vineyards, but it is the vineyard workers who work the land who are 100% in ownership of Thokozani Wines. Thokozani is run by CEO Denise Stubbs, who is herself the daughter of a vineyard worker, and she grew up in Peniel, just on the north end of Stellenbosch. Of course, this ownership structure is not unique to the South African winelands. There are a bunch of other examples, one of them being Bosman, who is probably the largest transformation initiative of its kind, spanning across over 12 farms. They are really an incredible example and worthy of closer study. There is also Mullineaux Wines, where they have launched a brand called Great Heart Wines, where profits are shared with the people who make the wine. And then there are smaller initiatives like the Earth Beneath Our Feet wines, which have a similar ethos. Much of the time, these enterprises need to be propped up or supported by the mother company that birthed them. And so it really becomes kind of charity dressed up in fancy clothing. Of course, there is nothing wrong with charity, but what it doesn't allow is a full transfer of the agency or power to act. And so the people involved never really reach that true financial independence and the dignity that comes along with it. And this is why Thokozani is so special. Thokozani Wine started in about 2002 and for almost 2 decades ran kind of parallel to Dimersfontein Wines, the kind of parent brand. But within that 20 years, the business was strong enough and sustainable enough in order to be able to turn around and make a groundbreaking move to purchase a controlling interest, 55%, in Dimersfontein Wines, the wine brand that birthed Thokozani. Thokozani also owns land, which it was sold by the Dimersfontein estate, in which they have essentially turned into a revenue-generating property portfolio of sorts. Finally, there are a few other elements that you might find interesting about Thokozani. Their management team is 100% female. Their board of directors is 100% female, and those board of directors are also 100% women of color. I've been making a point of watching this project very closely, and I hope to do a more complete episode on it at a later date where I can explore more in depth the challenges but also the opportunities that face this amazing outfit. Okay, so that's all we have time for today, but if you enjoyed the video, then support us on Patreon or subscribe to the HanDrinksSolo YouTube channel, where we publish at least 6 videos each month that talk about wine science, wine history, unusual cultivars, and some of the dynamic winemaking styles that are coming out of the South African wine.